Jack Green, an experienced astronaut from the British Space Agency, was preparing for another mission in Earth's orbit. It was supposed to be a routine expedition involving the maintenance and repair of a communication satellite. His team consisted of 4 individuals, each an excellent professional. But that morning when Jack woke up, he felt a strange premonition, as if something invisible was looming over him. After completing all the preparatory procedures, they headed to the launch pad. As the rocket soared into the sky, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of unease that kept growing. But he dismissed these thoughts and focused on his work. 2 days later in orbit, the team began the repair work. Everything was going according to plan, but suddenly something went wrong. One of the satellite panels they were supposed to replace unexpectedly detached and hit Jack's helmet. Stars danced before his eyes in a chaotic pattern, and he felt his body detach from the satellite's surface, drifting into the open space. "We're losing Jack," the commander shouted over the radio, but the signal quickly faded, and Jack found himself in complete silence and darkness. He tried to stay calm, but fear was taking over him. This is the end, he thought, staring into the endlessness of space. Suddenly, Jack felt a strong jolt, and he was enveloped in a light brighter than all the stars combined. He screamed but couldn't hear his voice. The next moment, Jack woke up on the doorstep of his house in a small British town. He was lying on the ground, looking at the familiar garden and the old oak tree that always stood by the house. But something was wrong. He was still in his spacesuit, but the helmet was gone. Jack stood up, feeling dizzy. "How did I get here?" he thought. Everything around seemed too quiet, too peaceful. He knocked on the door, but no one answered. It was open. He entered the house and saw everything as he remembered it: the old sofa, the wooden bookshelves, dishes left on the kitchen table from the last meal. But there were no signs of life, not a sound. Jack walked to the bedroom and saw his wife Emily lying on the bed. But as he got closer, cold horror gripped him. Emily was dead, her eyes were open, and she looked as if she had died from shock. Jack covered his mouth, stifling a scream. What happened here flashed through his mind. He didn't know how much time had passed since his disappearance. The sense of reality mixed with horror. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound, like someone was walking in the basement. Jack grabbed a flashlight and went down. The basement was dark and cold, as always. But when he turned on the light, he saw something that made his heart stop. The walls were covered with strange symbols that Jack had never seen before. They glowed with a faint green light. In the center of the room stood a large metal box, from which a knocking sound emanated. Jack slowly approached it and opened the lid. Inside the box was a device that looked like an artifact from another world. Its surface was smooth but covered with the same symbols as on the walls. Suddenly, the device began to glow brighter, and a powerful energy field burst out, enveloping Jack. He felt an unbearable pain course through his body, and images flashed before his eyes: his team in orbit, the accident, the bright light. Jack realized that this was a portal that had brought him back to Earth, but not to his reality. He found himself in a world where reality had merged with a nightmare. Emily was not real, she was just a shadow created by this artifact. Jack was trapped in his own house, where every day turned into a repeat of his horror. Each day he felt his sanity slipping away. The symbols on the walls seemed to move, whispering to him in an unknown language. He knew he couldn't escape. He was doomed to live in this eternal nightmare until he found a way to destroy the artifact. Jack gathered all his willpower and began to study the device. He knew it was his only chance for salvation. Each day he tried to decipher the mystery of the symbols, feeling his mind descending into the abyss. But time passed, and he felt he was getting closer to the solution. One day, when the symbols on the walls glowed brighter than usual, Jack felt he was on the verge of a breakthrough. He realized that the symbols were the key to shutting down the artifact. Gathering his remaining strength, he began drawing the symbols on the device in a specific order. His hands trembled, but he kept working. Suddenly, the device began to vibrate, and a burst of energy erupted from it, engulfing the entire house. Jack felt the light around him start to fade, and his body became weightless. He screamed, feeling his consciousness dissolve into darkness. When he came to, Jack realized he was in a different place. He lay on the floor of the Space Agency's laboratory. Around him were his colleagues, looking at him in astonishment. "Jack, are you okay?" the commander asked, helping him up. Jack looked around, trying to understand if this was real. He felt his mind gradually returning to reality. Everything that happened seemed like a terrible dream, but he knew it was more than just a dream. He told his team everything that had happened, but no one could believe his story. Only one scientist, who studied paranormal phenomena, took an interest in his tale and offered to investigate. Jack knew he would have to live with these memories for the rest of his life, but he was grateful to be back in reality. Although he never saw his house again and could not reunite with Emily, he knew there was still much unknown in his life. And although he never returned to space, Jack dedicated his life to studying the mysteries of the universe, hoping that one day he would unravel all the secrets that remained unsolved.